All right, let's dive into one of World War II's most infamous battles, the landing at Anzio. Now, this was a brilliant, incredibly daring plan, a huge gamble, really, to break a bloody stalemate in Italy. But what started as a absolutely perfect operation would spiral into 4 months of just unimaginable horror. And it all hinged on a single fateful decision.
So to really get Anzio, you have to picture what was going on in late 1943. The Allied push through Italy had just ground to a halt. And this quote, it just captures the problem perfectly. The rugged mountains, the rivers, the whole Italian peninsula was basically a defender's dream. The advance on Rome was completely stalled at this formidable German defense called the Gustav Line, and every single inch of ground was being paid for in blood.
So the Allies were stuck, truly stuck, in this brutal, grinding fight. And Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, was getting more and more frustrated with the lack of progress. So he championed a really bold idea to break the deadlock once and for all. Okay, now what's so cool about this is just how elegant the strategy was. Instead of just battering their heads against the mountains over and over, why not use their biggest advantage, total control of the sea, to just go around the German defenses? The plan got the codename Operation Shingle. The idea was to land an entire corps at Anzio, way behind enemy lines. The shock, they hoped, would force the Germans to pull troops away from the Gustav Line and, just maybe, open up a clear path to Rome itself. But, a brilliant plan is only as good as the people running it. And right here, you can see there was a problem at the very top. The two key guys, British Field Marshal Alexander and the American General Mark Clark, were like oil and water. One was this quiet, strategic thinker. The other was loud, super ambitious, and really, really concerned with getting credit. This clash of personalities, it was going to create constant, dangerous friction. And this quote right here, wow, it just perfectly captures the mood of the man they picked to actually lead the landing, U.S. General John P. Lucas. He was a cautious guy, maybe even pessimistic, and he was totally haunted by the bloody Salerno landings that had happened before. His own diary entries show he was just filled with dread about Operation Shingle from the get-go, and that, you have to say, is not the mindset you want for a daring, high-risk assault. But, despite Lucas's doubts, the plan went ahead. On January 22, 1944, this massive Allied fleet just appears off the coast of Anzio. 36,000 troops, a lot of them veterans from those horrific Salerno beaches. They were all bracing themselves for an absolute slaughter. But the slaughter, it never came. As the landing craft ramps dropped, the men were met not with machine gun fire, but with this, eerie silence. The beaches were pretty much undefended. This quote from a soldier on the ground really captures the absolute shock and disbelief of that moment. It was, against all odds, a perfect landing. Churchill's gamble had paid off spectacularly. The Germans were caught completely flat-footed. Their commander in Italy, Field Marshal Kesselring, had been assured by his own intelligence that no major landing was coming, so he'd left the Anzio coastline practically empty. Okay, let's just pause on this for a second, because this was the golden opportunity. You have a massive Allied force ashore, the enemy is in total disarray, and Rome, the grand prize, is just 20 miles down a completely undefended road. What would you do with that kind of incredible advantage? They stopped. That's it. Instead of exploiting the surprise and just racing inland, General Lucas, remember, his orders were to not stick his neck out. He chose caution. He decided to wait, to consolidate his position and bring all his men, all his equipment, and all his supplies ashore before he made a single move. And that decision to halt, would become one of the most debated and tragic moments of the entire Italian campaign. Because while the Allies paused, their enemy did the exact opposite. This slide just shows the stark contrast in command. While Lucas hesitated, Kesselring, even though he was caught completely by surprise, reacted with incredible speed and decisiveness. He immediately understood the danger and ordered every available German unit in Italy to race towards Anzio and seal off that beachhead. The German army's logistical skill, especially with their railway network, was put into full effect. And the result of that was just staggering. While the Allied commanders figured it would take the Germans maybe 6 days to mount a serious response, Kesselring managed to surround the beachhead with 70,000 troops in less than a week. The Allied window of opportunity, it had just slammed shut. Lucas wasn't the attacker anymore. He was trapped.
And what followed wasn't some swift advance, but a static 4-month siege. The Germans held all the high ground around the small beachhead, which let them observe and shell every single inch of the Allied position. This brilliant flanking maneuver had turned into a hellish existence, something more like the trench warfare of World War I than a modern war of movement. When the Allies finally did try to break out, the results were just catastrophic. In an attack on the town of Cisterna, 2 elite U.S. Ranger battalions were sent to sneak behind German lines, but they walked straight into a trap. Look at these numbers on the table. Of the roughly 1,500 elite soldiers sent in, only 12 came back. The Germans then paraded the captured survivors through Rome, a huge propaganda victory and just a devastating blow to Allied morale. Nobody was safe. The entire beachhead, from the front lines all the way to the field hospitals on the beach, was under constant artillery fire. This chilling quote from a medic just paints a picture of the horror. The main field hospital was shelled so often that it earned the nickname Hell's Half Acre. And the Germans used every weapon they had to make life unbearable. One of the most hated was something called the butterfly bomb. These were small, indiscriminate cluster bombs, and they were dropped by the hundreds. They were really designed to maim, not just kill, and their delayed fuses made every single patch of ground a potential death trap for soldiers who were just trying to huddle in their foxholes. So survival meant living like a mole. Soldiers existed underground, constantly digging, as shells from massive German guns, like the infamous railway gun they nicknamed Anzio Annie, rained down from the hills. This quote, it really just captures that subterranean life. Digging wasn't a chore, it was the only way to stay alive. For 4 long, brutal months, this stalemate just continued. Eventually, General Lucas was replaced, but the situation stayed locked. Finally, in May of 1944, the Allies launched a huge offensive across Italy, Operation Diadem. It was designed to finally break the Gustav line and, at long last, liberate the forces who were trapped at Anzio. Now, the strategic goal here was brilliant. As you can see in the plan, while the main Allied army broke through the Gustav line, the Anzio force was supposed to finally break out and drive east, cutting off and trapping 2 entire German armies. But General Mark Clark had other ideas. Instead of following his orders, he chose personal glory, and he directed his forces to drive straight north to capture Rome. So, Clark got his triumphant entry into Rome. He got his face on the front page of every newspaper. But the cost of that glory was immense. By ignoring his orders, he let the bulk of the German forces escape the trap. They just retreated north, dug in again, and continued the fight. His decision prolonged the bloody war in Italy for nearly another full year. And this is the ultimate consequence. This chart shows the estimated number of Allied soldiers killed in Italy after Clark's march on Rome. Roughly 70,000 more lives were lost in that extra year of fighting. A year of combat that, you have to think, might have been avoided if the German armies had been trapped and destroyed like they were supposed to be. And that just leaves us with this final, haunting question. The story of Anzio is a tragedy of command. It started with a cautious general who missed his chance, and it ended with an ambitious one who chose personal glory over a strategic victory. It's just a powerful reminder of how decisions made at the very top can have profound and often fatal consequences for the men on the ground.